Hey guys, Loading Gears here. Welcome back to my Metal Gear Solid lore series. On the last episode, we finished going over Metal Gear Solid 2 Sons of Liberty, where we got more information about the Patriots, a shadowy group that we first hear about way back in Metal Gear Solid 5. This shadowy group controls everything that happens in America behind the curtain. Even the president is a pawn to the Patriots. The leading members of the Patriots are called the Wiseman's Committee. Although in Metal Gear Solid 5, the Patriots are described as an AI project made to continue Zero's will and lead Cypher should something happen to Zero. A project which is developed by Donald Anderson, aka Sigint, aka the DARPA chief. This discrepancy, however, will be cleaned up in Metal Gear Solid 4. We also meet Rose and Jack, and we meet Solidus Snake, Big Boss's third imperfect clone. The game ends with Ocelot being fully taken over by Liquid's personality, thanks to the fact that he attached Liquid's arms to himself, and then driving a Metal Gear raid to the location he believes the Patriots are, and Raiden deciding to help Snake look for Olga's child after he takes care of his personal problems with Rose, and Otacon finding the names of the members of the Wiseman's Committee, and realizing that they have all been dead for over 100 years. Don't worry, we will also go over that in this game. Although the realization is kind of disappointing. Anyways, now that we're done recapping the last game, let's go into Metal Gear Solid 4, the final game of the Metal Gear Solid storyline. The game was released in 2008, but it is based in 2014, 5 years after the events of Metal Gear Solid 2. The first thing we see when we start the game is fake TV commercials that are mainly supposed to give you a look at the state of the world in 2014 in the Metal Gear Solid universe. The themes we see throughout the commercial hints a few things. 1. The world has become dominated by technology. One of the commercials even show a fitness trainer selling weight loss pills, which are actually nanomachines you take to help you gain muscle. 2. Advertisements are everywhere. Even in the middle of shows, you see little panels advertising some other product or something else, or panels talking about some news. Which brings me to my next point. 3. The world of Metal Gear Solid 4 is one that seems to have become normalized to the brutality of war. This is best shown by the little panels flying around this animal show talking about the current events, and the cooking show, which is shown in another channel. The panels floating around in the animal show is weird, not just because of the fact that this is a show that is completely irrelevant to politics, but it's what it says. It speaks of a suicide pirate attack that killed 42 people, a genetically modified cow that mauled 14 people, and how the city officials' only response to this was to express disappointment in the technology. Mexico having biannual warlord elections, and America digging up the body of Robespierre and using it as a decoration in the White House party for the second year in a row. As ridiculous and fun as it sounds, it's only funny because it's ridiculous, it's unbelievable, but this is the world in Metal Gear Solid 4. The cooking show, called the Bomb Shelter Buffet, is in a set that looks like a military bunker. It's sturdy, unpainted, made with cement, and has a weapons locker to the side and what I can only describe as a suicide lizard. Even the cook himself is unusually brutal, skinning what looks like a crocodile on screen and cutting a live snake to test his knife. Everything just stinks of a society normalized to, or even attracted to, war themes. This brings me to my final point about the world of Metal Gear Solid 4, and probably the most important. PMCs, private military companies. With the popularization of wars, PMCs have become extremely commonplace, so much so that there are multiple advertisements of different PMCs on a TV as casual as a fast food restaurant advertising themselves. Now that we understand what the world of Metal Gear has become in 2014, let's continue with the game and let us see Solid Snake's final chapter.
Mike, this is the last chapter in this Snake's life!
Chapters 0-1, Rapid Aging. The game begins in the Arlington Cemetery, where Solid Snake is seen saluting a grave. The same cemetery we see Big Boss saluting the boss's grave at the end of Metal Gear Solid 3. But for some reason, although this game is based only 5 years after Metal Gear Solid 2, Snake looks like he's aged 30 years. Before we get to take a look at the tombstone, a helicopter lands near... Hey guys, Loading Gears here. I'm editing this video right now as we speak, but as I'm doing that, I realized that this few seconds of the clip has been, for some reason, it didn't record, so I'm gonna have to record it with my crappy microphone while sitting in McDonald's right now. So, let's continue. Otacon emerges from the helicopter and tells Snake that an old friend is waiting for him in a chopper. Before getting on the chopper, Snake asks Otacon about some test results. He tells Snake that although none of the tests were able to pinpoint the cause, his symptoms of early aging all look like Werner syndrome, which is a genetic disorder which causes people to show signs of aging prematurely, essentially like progeria, but it happens later in life. They both guess that at best, Snake has a year to live. Okay, now back to the good microphone. While Otacon is hopeful and wants to try another doctor, Snake refuses the help and reminds him that he's not an ordinary man to begin with. Not to mention that even if they were to fix the rapid aging, Foxdie could still kill him at any moment, and they don't even know where Naomi is, the only person who would know how to cure the strain of Foxdie. Snake has essentially given up the fight to try to survive. In the chopper, a friendly face greets Snake. It's Colonel Campbell. The real one this time, not AI Campbell. Campbell is now part of the analysis and assessment staff of the PMC Oversight and Inspection Committee, which works for and under the UN Security Council. It was with this work that he was able to come across information leading to Ocelot's, nay, Liquid's location in the Middle East. Chapter 1-1 Briefing. This is where the game's first act begins, Liquid's son. Snake, Campbell, and Otacon are now all back at the Nomad, a cargo airplane that Otacon pretty much uses as a house. Campbell explains that because of the public outlash caused by the Manhattan incident during Metal Gear Solid 2, the US now has to think twice before engaging militarily in other countries' affairs. Although considering that the Manhattan incident was a domestic affair, I'm not sure why, but whatever. The whole situation has created the popularization of military privatization, which is where the popularization of PMCs started happening. The PMCs not only have the benefit that the soldiers aren't connected to the country that hired them, but also they secure weapons and train local soldiers as services. Their only motive is profit, not nations, not ideologies. PMCs are hired by all types of people at this point. Large countries like the US, small countries with no armies of their own, rebel groups, and even terrorists. While Campbell's still talking, Sunny comes down the stairs and offers everyone her crappy eggs. Oh yeah, did I forget to mention Sunny? Remember Olga? Remember how she mentioned she had a kid? Well, apparently Raiden found her. Her name is Sunny, and she now lives with Otacon in the Nomad. She also makes horrible eggs, and has a bad stutter thanks to living most of her life in seclusion while being captive by the Patriots. Anyways, while Otacon programs a little robot on his desk, Campbell explains how these PMCs are different and even worse than the usual mercenaries that have always been around all throughout Earth's history. Apparently, Arms Tech has shifted its focus from weapons to security systems, a new battlefield control system for the Pentagon. This system lets the person hiring the PMC and the PMC Oversee Committee have micro levels of information and a certain level of control over individual soldiers, but it also feeds them information about the current conditions of the battlefield and order of battle. In other words, they have a real-time view and control of the battlefield. This has made hiring PMCs a much safer and much more cost-effective endeavor than ever before. However, it gives PMCs a much sharper edge against soldiers that are not within the system. Even though civilian casualties and human rights violations in the battlefield have decreased dramatically thanks to this system. Good propaganda, a cleaner battlefield. This, along with their cheaper maintenance price and their reliability thanks to the battlefield control system, has made them even more popular in the use than actual state-run armies, to the point where in zones of conflict they take up to 60% of the standing forces. Sunny then finds Snake's cigarettes in the kitchen and gets angry at Snake because, as she says,
"This is a non-smoking play."
That's an ongoing joke in this game. Most people in the game give Snake shit for smoking. The uprising of PMCs has hit America in the wallet, however, since they have been exporting too much military power before this. In order to make up for this, the US has turned war into a sort of economic activity, since PMCs were so cost-effective, creating what analysts call the war economy. Campbell refuses to just let this happen, as market expansions for PMCs mean expanding the flames of war. This means more refugees and war orphans who turn into child soldiers and join other PMCs. After joining the PMC, they take their revenge on other PMCs. This is why Campbell calls this process all this proxy wars, because these are all people fighting wars that are disconnected from the actual cause of the wars. the war economy feeding itself, much like Big Boss used to do back in Zanzibar land. Start a conflict, take the orphans, turn them into soldiers, start another conflict. While there are hundreds of PMCs all over the globe, only 5 are large enough to be labeled global powers. 2 in the US, Ravensword and Werewolf, 1 in the UK, Praying Mantis, 1 in France, Pierre Armament, I'm sure I mispronounced that, but it means octopus armament, and 1 in Russia, Ocelot. I'm not gonna pretend like I even have the slightest idea how to pronounce that, but it means Ocelot's grasp. All 5 of these PMCs are run by one dummy corporation, and after doing some digging, the UN found the name of this corporation: Outer Heaven. The leader of this company is none other than Liquid Snake, or as we will now call him since he has taken over Ocelot's body, Liquid Ocelot. The name seems fitting considering that the way they fanned their flames of war is exactly how Big Boss did it. He really outdid Big Boss. Liquid has some kind of planned insurrection in order to make the perfect world envisioned by Big Boss, where soldiers will always have a place to live. While governments and even the UN are aware of most of this, they're all too concerned about collapsing the war economy to do anything about it, since they all now depend on it. In other words, this isn't an official mission that Campbell's giving to Snake. It's a personal favor from Campbell, as he can't just sit around and watch the world collapse while Liquid becomes the greatest threat in the world. After Snake agrees to the mission, Campbell tells him that their intel on Liquid's uprising came from US Special Forces, who was sent to the Middle East after the UN was informed of Campbell's findings. Otacon informs them that there is a rebel army in the Middle East made up of ethnic minorities that are fighting against the PMCs that were hired by the current government regime. I don't think Kojima realizes how big of an area the Middle East is. The core of this regime's army is provided by the Praying Mantis PMC, one of the PMC under Liquid's control. Meanwhile, all the rebels have are the local PMCs and themselves. So except for the rebels that are actually fighting, this is a great example of one of the many proxy wars that the world is plagued by. So to cut into the meat of the briefing, Snake's mission is to sneak into the battlefield via a transport truck while disguised as one of the hired operators by the rebel army. From there, he is to make contact with the UN's informants known as Rat Patrol Team 01, or Rat Pt29 for short. After hinting that Campbell may be connected with the team, or at least know someone in the team, the scene ends with Snake telling Campbell that he is no mercenary and doesn't need his money, accepting the mission in his own way. Chapter 1-2 War Has Changed. We see Snake in a truck in the middle of a destroyed Middle Eastern town, approaching a conflict zone. During this, we hear him give a monologue.
War has changed. It's no longer about nations, ideologies, or ethnicity. It's an endless series of proxy battles fought by mercenaries and machines. War and its consumption of life has become a well-oiled machine. War has changed. ID tag soldiers carry ID tagged weapons, use ID tag gear. Nanomachines inside their bodies enhance and regulate their abilities. Genetic control, information control, emotion control, battlefield control. Everything is monitored and kept under control. War has changed. The age of deterrence has become the age of control, all in the name of averting catastrophe from weapons of mass destruction. And he who controls the battlefield controls history. War has changed. When the battlefield is under total control, war becomes routine.
As Snake enters the conflict zone, we start to realize how outmatched the rebels are compared to the PMCs. During this conflict, we see Snake attempt to pick up a weapon from a PMC, but he's unable to use it for some reason. Not only are the PMCs more skilled and better coordinated than the rebels, but they have advanced attack helicopters and even unmanned weapons, which we see later, which lunge toward them from far away and go on a killing spree. These unmanned weapons are called geckos, and they are big, powerful, fast, and smart. Snake, knowing that he's outmatched, makes a tactical retreat and manages to run to a safe area before he's spotted by another gecko and is pursued by it and another one for a short time. Snake, however, manages to hide from them by using his octo camouflage feature in his new suit. This feature lets his combat suit change textures and colors depending on what is around it, also rendering him invisible to thermal scanners. After some time, the geckos leave Snake and Snake gets up, now understanding what he's up against. Snake jumps off the building he's on and finds a weapon from a falling rebel soldier. This one he can use. Why he can use this but not one of the PMC's gun will be explained soon. Before Snake meets Rat Patrol's Team 01, he meets up with what Otacon calls the Mark II. It's a small surveillance robot that Otacon uses to communicate with Snake and store and retrieve gear for Snake, amongst other things. Before continuing, Otacon hands Snake an eye patch he calls the Solid Eye via the Mark II. The Solid Eye allows him to get battlefield information like a real-time sound radar. It also serves as night vision goggles and a scope. He also hands Snake a pistol with a suppressor and a tranq gun. Before heading out, Otacon activates the Mark II's optic camo so it won't attract attention. While inside a building, Snake meets a man who calls himself Drebin. Drebin number 893 to be exact. He's a weapons salesman who tells Snake that all of his weapons have been laundered. Apparently, the PMCs use guns that have a lock on them, and only someone that is supposed to have access to the guns can use it while holding it. Otherwise, it locks. It's all part of the new battlefield control system. This is why Snake couldn't use the PMC gun he picked up before. When Drebin says that his weapons are laundered, he means that he has removed the mechanism that locks them, so he can still use them. This makes him a gun launderer as well as a weapon salesman. Apparently, there are more Drebins like him all over the world. Being able to see that Snake isn't a PMC soldier, he tells Snake that he needs a guy like him and gives him an M4 as a welcoming gift to a new customer. After nerding out over his new gun, Snake gives the gun a test but realizes he still can't pull the trigger. Drebin assumes that this is because Snake is using an old generation of nanomachines, which sometimes mess with the new system. Most likely the ones Naomi injected in him during Shadow Moses. Drebin explains that his day job is in arms tech and he is in production control. This is how he gets his hand on the chips that he puts inside guns before they're ever registered to someone. While Otacon does not particularly trust him, he can see how they're going to need him, so he advises Snake to keep him at arm's length for weapons and intel. While inside his vehicle, Drebin tells Snake that he's going to need to suppress the old nanomachines in his body so they won't interfere with the system. And he's going to do this with more nanomachines. Suppressor nanomachines that he tried to stick Snake with before Snake stops him. You can imagine why he's so paranoid about letting someone stick him with nanomachines. However, he eventually lets him do it, and now Snake is able to fire the M4 Drebin gave him. From now on, when Snake picks up a gun on the battlefield, Otacon can send it to Drebin, use the Mark II, and pay him to launder it. After that, any copies of the gun Snake gets, Otacon can sell to Drebin for what he calls Drebin points, which is the currency that Snake can use to buy stuff from him. Before heading out, Drebin makes a dark prediction that the bigger the PMCs get, the more the line between civilian and PMs and military are going to get really blurry until everyone is fighting proxy wars. But hey, puts more money on his table. After Drebin leaves, Snake exits the building and traverses the conflict zone into the building he's supposed to meet the Rat Patrol Team 01 in. Chapter 1-2 Rat Patrol 01. Snake climbs to the top of a building where he is ambushed by a soldier from behind who tells him to drop his weapon. Snake, noticing his nervous demeanor, manages to catch him off guard by telling him an old line from Metal Gear Solid 1.
You haven't even taken the safety off, rookie. Or shot a person, have you?
You talk too much.
You haven't even taken the safety off, rookie.
I told you I'm no rookie.
To which the soldier responds that,
Careful, I'm no rookie. I'm a 10-year vet.
However, he still checks his safety for 1 second, enough time to quickly let Snake take the opportunity to grab him and his gun and knock him down, asking him how he survived 10 years. At that moment, the rest of the soldiers' team reveal themselves, putting them all in a standoff. While Snake slowly pins the soldiers with his knee, just in case, Snake vocally acknowledges the fox emblem on the female soldier's vest, which makes her calm down enough to realize that she knows who she's aiming her gun at. And we know her. It's Meryl on steroids. Trust me, you can't tell, but you can't really tell with her suit on, but the woman is swole. After not seeing Snake for almost a decade, Meryl asks him the most blunt question she could possibly ask.
What happened to your face?
Anyways, Meryl confirms that she is the informant sent by the UN he was supposed to meet with, and apparently she thinks that Snake was just sent in as an inspector by the UN as well. Her team, Rat Patrol 01, is tasked with investigating PMC activity. It's made up of her, the commander, Johnny, aka Akiba, the one in charge of intel, traps, and other technologies, Ed, the radio man and sniper, and finally Jonathan, who is essentially the muscle of the team. Akiba is seen having uncontrollable stomach pains due to diarrhea. I promise I'm not telling you that for no reason.
Diarrhea.
Meryl later tells Snake that Liquid has been in the area for 4 days, and since then he has been with a woman pictured in a photo she hands Snake. While Snake looks at the picture, we can see it from his perspective, which reveals that his vision is failing him as well. The woman is most likely an advisor or scientist. After some melodramatism and her showing skepticism to Snake only being there as an inspector, especially due to the rumor of an assassin after the PMC leader, Meryl further explains the arms tech system and why she's so sure that as long as it's in place, Liquid won't be able to pull his insurrection. The system monitors every single soldier engaged in combat, whether state military or PMC. They do this using ID nanomachines injected in them for that purpose. The nanomachines can also monitor a wide range of things 24/7. The wounds, secreted blood pressure, and sugar levels. Not only do nanomachines transmit information to their overseers, but it also transmits information to the soldiers in their team, which makes teamwork go a lot smoother. They can literally see and hear whatever the other team members see and hear, giving them a clearer picture of the battlefield and letting them coordinate better. This system is also what locks the guns depending on the authorization of the person holding it. But not only does it do that, it also allows the gun to be locked if the user is making an unauthorized action, such as defecting to another army or committing humanitarian atrocities or even friendly fire. Even if they manage to get rid of the nanomachines, they would lose their IDs in the process, making them unable to shoot their weapons. Snake asks Meryl if the Patriots are behind the system. It does seem like a very Patriot thing to do. But Meryl seems to not know how they could be involved. She also calls them the Lalilulelo.
Lalilulelo? What are you talking about?
Never mind.
Like other people we have seen in the past.
To the Patriots.
The Lalilulelo.
No, I was sent in by the Lalilulelo.
Just a messenger from the Lalilulelo.
Lalilulelo. Lalilulelo. Lalilulelo.
Anyways, the name of this system is called Sons of the Patriots, or SOP for short. Which honestly, if she knows that, I don't know how she could doubt that the Patriots are behind it. She tells Snake that the AI that controls the whole system is tightly guarded by the Pentagon and Arms Tech. But that's beside the point. The point is that for Liquid to have a company as large as he does, he must have registered with the SOP system. And as long as they're registered, they will never be able to have Liquid's insurrection. Snake brings up that Campbell was one of the ones who put Snake in this mission, which infuriates Meryl to the point of her throwing shit around the room. Apparently, after Shadow Moses, Meryl found out that Campbell was actually her father, and considering that this happened because Campbell had an affair with his brother's wife, the man that Meryl grew up thinking was her father, her whole life, I don't think she took the news very well. But it probably doesn't help that he remarried a woman who is about Meryl's age and who has a kid. He never even tried making amends with her, so she claims she will never forgive him, calling him a
Womanizing piece of shit.
Meryl.
At this moment, Ed's scanner starts to pick up some enemy activity, about 20 enemies inside the building, and from Liquid's private troops, the Frogs, a group of elite female soldiers that only answer to Liquid. They are equipped with power suits and can jump far heights and cling onto walls. Apparently, the glare on Akiba's scope lens gave them away. So they group up and start to prepare for the inevitable combat while they retreat. The well-coordinated Frogs start to gain on them when they start going downstairs. Akiba is the only soldier who seems to be panicking, but he manages to get himself together. Meryl tells her team not to choke, as they got a real-life legendary hero with them. While in tight combat, Akiba literally shits himself and manages to get knocked out, providing almost no help all the way down to the bottom floor. Once they make it to the indoors parking lot, and they think they're safe, they are ambushed by more Frog soldiers, but Meryl's team shows the effectiveness of the SOP system by quickly taking them all out with a single shot knowing exactly where to move, since they can all see what each of them see. All except for Akiba, of course. Not only that, but Jonathan shows almost no pain reaction to being shot. For some reason, Akiba seems to receive none of the SOP benefits. After marking Liquid's camp on Snake's map, Meryl and her team head out.
I'm no hero. Never was. Never will be.
You haven't changed at all, Snake.